Well, hello there, friend. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast, where we help construction executives lead high-performing teams, finish on time and under budget, without all the firefighting and babysitting, so you can lead with focus and control. I am your host, Bradley Hartmann. Now, on today's episode, my friend, this is a little bit different. It's a little more personal, maybe, but this is ultimately not a problem of leadership per se. It's my problem. And over the last few weeks, I've realized that I'm spending way too much time mentally living in what strategy coach Dan Sullivan calls the gap. And the gap, real simply, is the space in between what is actually happening where we are now and the ideal. Now, given this imperfect medium of audio only, for a visualization, I want you to bear with me. So I want you to imagine you're standing outside, you're looking, the sun is going down in the future. Now, right in front of you, you got your hands out. In your hands is something called actual. These are your actual results. This is what is actually happening. You, my friend, are here. Now, in the distance, though, you're going to see something just beyond the horizon. You're going to see the ideal. And the gap is the difference between actual, what is in your hands now, where you are, and the ideal in the future about where you want to be. Now, I want to state right here up front, no one listening, certainly you, not anybody else, should feel sorry for me ever. But maybe what I'm about to say feels familiar to yourself, or maybe you can recognize this feeling in someone else. But for all intents and purposes, life is pretty good. I run my own business. We have a wonderful team with colleagues who I love working with. We are growing. I just hired a new person. I get to write every single day, which I love. I get to deliver these podcasts, which I like. I get paid to speak and work with great companies with wonderful logos. And for all intents and purposes, life is wonderful. And I cannot imagine what I thought my life would be 10 years ago, but I cannot imagine I would have imagined this. And yet, I'm living in the gap. I'm living in between actual and the ideal. And my brain keeps telling me it isn't enough. We're not growing fast enough. Any success that we're having, if I was actually better and smarter at what I do, we would be far larger than we are today. And because I'm so busy, don't have a lot of downtime, it just feels like I'm just doing the same thing day after day. I'm kind of in a rut. I'm kind of in this gap. And whenever this happens, I realize something, that I'm not measuring my life against reality. I'm measuring my current life against an imaginary future that doesn't even exist. So in today's episode, I'm going to explain what this gap is, and I'm going to share with you how I've been able to navigate out of it by coming back to this tool, this very brief book. But you don't need the book. You just need the mental model. And what I have learned is that there are many other people like me out there who are ambitious, who do want to grow, who like to think independently, that have big dreams for the future. And no matter what sort of successes they have, they're always living in the gap, the place between where they are today and the ideal future that is only an imagination in their mind. So if you've ever hit your goals and immediately thought, well, we should have hit this years ago, well, this podcast is probably for you. And if you constantly feel like you're behind for some reason when everyone else is just crushing it, well, this episode is probably for you too. And this idea, while I am not impervious to it, by recognizing the mental model of the gap, it does lead to unhappiness. But this is a way to completely change about how you think about your success. In his little book, Learning How to Avoid the Gap, The Skill of Building Lifetime Happiness by Dan Sullivan, this is what he writes. Learning how to avoid the gap. There are many people in this world who are enormously successful, live in wonderful circumstances, and have extraordinary opportunities. Yet, they are unhappy, and it keeps getting worse. At the same time, there are others with all these same achievements and advantages who are happy, increasingly so. Why the difference? Why are some successful people happy and others not? I believe it's because of the way people's brains work. The happy individuals look at life from one perspective, the unhappy look at life from another. Failure to learn about the ideal. The analogy of a horizon is very useful because it points out the importance of understanding how our minds work. Why is it that virtually everyone can accept the horizon as just a mental construct, whereas many people have lifelong difficulty in accepting the ideal, with a capital I, as just a thinking tool? So what he's pointing out here, as long as we are going to measure our progress between our actual today, that is here in our hands, and the ideal about what is possible, we're going to be unhappy. Why? Well, because we're behind. We're not there yet. We have underperformed. So as I'm thinking about my mental state of being in the gap between the actual and the ideal, I'm thinking about my friend who for a spell worked in the construction industry. His name is Jack Kennedy. And Jack Kennedy, 20 years ago, after working in construction, moved to Hollywood. And he's been a struggling artist out there for 2 decades. He married a writer in the business out there. And together, they produced a documentary called You Are Here. And the characters in the movie continuously say, "You are here, deal with it." And every time I hear that, because I've been following him now because he got an RV and he took his 3 kids and his 3 dogs and his loving wife, piled them in the RV, and they're going around the country doing Q&As and doing some red carpet stuff, getting this movie out there. And every time I hear that title, "You Are Here," I smile because it's impossible to get somewhere else until you admit where you actually are. So Jack, his family, and the entire circus is rolling through Dallas in early August, and I'm excited to see him here. And the whole point of the movie is that things happen in your life. You have a choice on how you behave once you get in them. There are things you don't control, and just accept the fact that you are here. Deal with it. And that's a fantastic metaphor for what we're talking about here, living in the gap between the actual and the ideal. The source of unhappiness. When successful individuals don't learn that the ideal is just a mental construct and that there's always a permanent gap between their actual achievements and the ideal, the chances are very great that they will lead chronically unhappy lives. They will also make the lives of many other people around them unnecessarily difficult and frustrating in the process. Thinking in the gap, living in between the actual and the ideal, is the principal source of unhappiness for a great number of people, especially among those people who are the most talented, ambitious, and successful in all fields of activity. Because the ideal is a mental construct and therefore not achievable, it makes no sense to use it as a measurement of our achievements. Yet millions of people do, every single day. The result is a continual sense of missing the mark. No matter how great your achievements are, if you measure against the ideal, you will always come up short. You will always feel deficient. Every time they set a goal, they expect to reach the ideal, and these desires and aspirations are always frustrated. The resulting feeling over the course of a lifetime is one of low self-esteem. There can be a profound sense of guilt for not having lived up to their ideal. Ultimately, these individuals can go into a chronic state of depression, which can severely undermine both their mental and physical health. Their achievements say they should be happy, but they are very unhappy. And I know a lot of successful, ambitious people that do this exact thing. And these are CEOs, and these are vice presidents, and these are executives and chairmen, successful salespeople and leaders. And all of us make progress and immediately erase it by replacing today's success with tomorrow's expectation. From living in this big gap between the success that we've had, that we've moved forward from some other actual a year or 2 years ago to today, and we're comparing against the ideal, the horizon of what could be or what could have been, that creates unhappiness. In the documentary, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, one thing he says is that he hates losing more than he likes winning. And I'll hear other people say, "I totally agree with it, man. I don't really care about winning, but I hate losing." And that to me also makes a lot of sense. But this is also a way to live in the gap. Like when you hit a goal of achieving $20 million in sales, and you immediately think, well, if we hit those other deals, we could be at 30. Or 4 years ago during COVID, we were actually at 40. Or when an owner finally hires their first chief executive and starts turning over the business to them, that should be a source of celebration, but all they think about is the next problem. Or when a commercial builder finishes one project and they should celebrate that for the success it was, and what do? They only see the backlog and they never actually enjoy winning. So what does Dan Sullivan have to say about all this? Well, it basically says, man, the ideal, there's no finish line there. There's no way to measure your progress. And for high performers who are ambitious, they're generally pretty good at documenting goals and monitoring their progress towards those goals. But think about the horizon. Man, you can drive all the way through West Texas for 10 hours until it's dark. You're not getting anywhere closer to that horizon. It keeps moving. That's the exact same thing Dan Sullivan is saying here. Is what you should be doing is saying, where am I today? And how can I move an inch forward? How can I move a foot forward? How can I move a yard or a mile forward? And then when we can measure the progress that we've made, however small or large that should be, we should celebrate that. And he says you should always measure progress backward. Because if you start measuring any sort of progress against your ideal, against the horizon, of course, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to have succeeded as far as you think you should be if that's the finish line, the horizon that you can never reach. And one of the most practical ways I navigate around this is I just start answering a series of questions. On paper, longhand, I write, where was I exactly 1 year ago? What was I doing? Where was I at 5 years ago with my business? And who was I working with? Where was I before I started my company 15 years ago? How long ago was it when I got my first paid speaking engagement? Now, obviously, I'm not going to bore you with all those details, but I can guarantee you, as I'm looking at 15 years being in business, if you would have said, in 15 years, Bradley, you'll have published 15 books, you'll have published 600 some episodes, and you'll have worked with all these amazing construction companies, and a big part of your job would be writing and publishing and helping people with a team of 6 amazing people, I would never believe it. I would not believe that progress. And yet, here I am today, kind of in a funk. Now, again, I want to be clear, nobody should feel sorry for me. What I'm saying is it's easy to slip into these patterns, to slip in the gap and start living in a place where you don't feel like it's enough. And I'm measuring myself against an ideal that I haven't even specified. So in the book, Dan Sullivan has a few strategies to get out of the gap. His second one says, increase your ability to establish and achieve goals and to acknowledge and celebrate progress. This is kind of an insight to the obvious. He writes, first, write your goals down, making sure that they are specific and measurable, and give yourself deadlines for achieving them. Second, review your progress on a daily basis and continually celebrate your success. When you have achieved your goals, acknowledge your success and celebrate. Now, if you're like me, you're already doing this exactly. The key for me here is to delegate that celebration organization, scheduling, and process with my team because I won't do it. I grew up in a family where you didn't really celebrate achievements. That's kind of what Hartmanns were supposed to do. And it is not natural for me to go celebrate just because we hit some goal we set. But those things are really important, especially as you have a growing team. So by delegating that, that solves that one. And the last strategy I will give you is strategy 6. Dan Sullivan writes, increase your ability to create value in all life situations. Value creation consists of 3 different kinds of activities. Leadership, where you provide other people with direction. Relationship, where you provide them with confidence. And creativity, where you provide others with new capabilities. So if you ever felt the same way that I have, that you find that you're living here in this gap, you're kind of in a funk between what is actually happening where you are and the ideal in the future, here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend 10 minutes this week and measure backward. I want you to make a list of all the things that you have accomplished over the last 5 years. What new relationships have you formed? What new growth have you achieved? What successes have you had? Just do a mind dump of all the things that are improvements or achievements or anything good in your life that has come about in the last 5 years. And of course, if you want to give back, that'll make you feel good. Here's a simple way you can do that. Take a look at the film You Are Here by Jack Kennedy. His crazy little circus packed within a 35-foot RV might be coming your way, and you can check out his film. Because before you can figure out where you're going, it's helpful to remember the title of Jack's film, which is You Are Here. Deal with it, accept it, appreciate it for where you're at, look to improve 1% a day, and keep moving forward. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.